Yes, very welcome to all of you on my behalf as well. As Timo mentioned, this is really the 10th year of HealthBIO event. Practically a full house today. The seminar room takes about 260 persons. We have 220 people plus some extras here for the part of the day or for the full of the day. Well, 10 years is a long time. It seems that this concept works. However, I think although I know Timo is in the opinion that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I will anyhow hand you a questionnaire later in the afternoon, and I hope you will fill it so that maybe we can still improve a bit for the next coming years. But let's go now back to my topic. So we have got 10 years of HealthBIO, and I just wanted to look back and see what was in discussions 10 years ago. Very surprisingly, it was funding. And if we read of these, and background, I think for that was that we had severe and drastic changes in the Finnish life sciences environment, because 2 years before, Sitra all of a sudden stopped funding life sciences, and that also made difficulties for all existing venture capitalists, because they were not able to collect funds as easily as earlier. But these facts are still valid, so has really anything changed. At 2007, the big pharma companies, they started to bring positive news. Little by little also, the more mature companies start producing positive news. At that time, 2007 until 2010, Tekes really had a crucial role in funding early phase development and new companies. Okay. Yeah, so what happened during the past 12 months? So this I wanted to show you some highlights, and of course need to start with the startups. Last year I was afraid that kind of the startup activity seemed to be diminishing. Now this is again in 13, so a very steady and average level. Really good news is that we have had 2 new pharma companies, Sartar Therapeutics and Aranda Pharma. Sartar is finding new indications for existing drugs. Aranda Pharma is focusing in the lead candidate is in prostate cancer, but they also are active in the CNS field. Then we got companies that support pharmaceutical development, like Nanoform Finland, Microatmos, and Genomic Health, of course, and there was someone else, I think, as well. We got 4 diagnostic companies, Regional DNA, Olfactomics, who has got an electronic nose, Biomentio, who diagnoses drugs of abuse and food, and Neuro Event Labs for epilepsy diagnostics. But then we got also, let's say the health, serious health IT or digital health sector is raising, and I will tell more about that later in my presentation. Then the success stories for the big pharma, and I trust that I'm not ruining anyone's presentation later on. The 2 big ones, Bayer and Orion in Finland, both showed very positive news. Mirena had a steady growth in 2015, reaching almost 1 billion. Even to this first half of the year, Mirena showed some growth, even though the product had some difficulties in the US. But anyhow, Mirena was Bayer's fourth biggest drug. It's still manufactured here in Turku, and it's the only manufacturing place of Mirena. Orion, for its part, showed again steady growth in net sales and in operating profit. Also, positive news was that they gained marketing approval for their animal sedative Sileo in the US, and they expanded their collaboration with Bayer regarding the compound ODM-201. They also have started strategic collaboration with the German Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases, and started in the pain area collaboration with Japanese Asahi Kasei. And last but not least, Orion's active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing company, Fermion, invests 30 million euros for a new production plant in Hanko area. So, which is, of course, locally is a very important investment. Then some other good news is that Faron Pharmaceuticals made an IPO in London end of last year, and they also got some additional funding from Tekes. Faron just yesterday or 2 days ago announced for their results, which of course for a drug development company were pretty good, but still not making profit, of course. Labmaster, a Turku-based diagnostic company, this is really new news, is that they got 6 million funding from a South Korean investment company to support their development of detection technology for clinical diagnostics. Then positive news from Aurealis Pharma, who got 3 million euros funding from Swiss and Finnish private investors for their lead compound in chronic inflammations and cancer. And Aranda Pharma, the company that was established end of last year, raised money from Finvera and Chinese Starex, who became a 33% owner of Aranda on its prostate cancer program. Additional good news is Onbone was able to expand their earlier announced funding round from 10 million euro to 13 million euro for its wood cast product launch globally. Finmic, microscope image analysis company, closed 1.5 million funding round, and BrainShake 3.5 million funding round for blood testing of chronic diseases. Optomed, who specializes in digital imaging of retina, closed a 3 million funding round from Robert Bosch Venture Capital, so new investor in Finland in this field. And Tilt Therapeutics, NetMed, and Inject, all these three companies announced for venture capital investments, but they didn't disclose the numbers. Then another way to gain funding for the company is to use other non-traditional sources, and here are some examples how these companies have been successful in this. So PharmaTest participates in two EU-funded programs, special programs, Eurostars and Eurotranspire, and they received through these programs 1.73 million funding, quite a lot for a small company. Delsitech also received grant money from Horizon 2020 to develop inorganic nanomatrices for targeted drug therapies. And Medfiles, together with the University of Eastern Finland and University of Tampere, received more than 1.3 million in also from Horizon 2020 project. And Kaivogen, together with University of Turku and some Indian partners, received funding from the Wellcome Trust to develop virus tests for India. And we remember that 2 years ago in this event, you probably remember George Trikas from the Wellcome Trust saying that he hasn't seen a single funding application from Finland so far. So now at least they have seen one. Other strategic project funding is that Medicine got this crowdfunding 1 million euros and also funding from Horizon 2020 to improve the care of elderly patients with multimorbidity, so with many diseases. Innokas Medical, who is a Medtech designing and manufacturing company, got 0.7 million euros from Horizon 2020 Fast Track Innovation Pilot. And very importantly, we also, a local or Finnish venture capitalist Lifeline Ventures was able to raise a new 57 million euro fund to invest in startups. Then if we go for more to the deal sector or scientific or product milestone sector, especially in the drug development field, is that positive news is that, of course, Faron Pharmaceuticals made a licensing agreement in South Korea with HealthBIO Korea, and they got a small signing fee plus milestone and royalty payments. Faron also received positive results from phase 2 study for the Traumakine project in Japan. Montisera, an early phase drug development company, acquired patents from UPM, a Biofor company, to more efficiently extract compounds from wood. And Norwegian-owned, we all remember that Targovax acquired last year Oncos Therapeutics, and now Targovax received positive results from Oncos product in phase 1, phase 2 clinical trial, and they were also able to raise 12 million euro new funding. And last but not least, Medfile received a GMP license from Fimea so that they are able to manufacturing batches for clinical trials. Medfiles, by the way, will fill 30 years next year. So we hopefully expect a big party in Kuopio. Then in the e-health sector, we also see an expanded activity. So biocomputing platforms, they started to partner with Auria Biobank in management of genomic data. So once again, better utilization of the biobanking data that we have available in Finland. They also partnered with the Mexican player to support the creation of the largest biobank in Latin America. And they provide genomic data management services to an Australian university and collaborate in the genomic data management with Nexus, which is the spin-off of ETH Zurich. Abomix, a Turku-based company, starts producing genetic test interpretation data for Austrian Permedio, and Commit starts a pilot project to test the production management system of breast cancer screening in St. Petersburg area. So there is some activity also in Russia nowadays. So we Finns are close to Russia, so we certainly should be looking what else there would be happening. MFIT launches a new 3G mobile data version of the sleep monitor, which was, by the way, used by many teams in the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. And Coupa was able to get its location system in Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami. That would help the daily work and monitoring of patients. And Medicine starts collaboration with Sonera. Those who maybe don't know what is Sonera, it's a big teleoperator in the Nordic countries. So in the area of remote monitoring of patients. I know this seems a big list, but it is, and I'm happy for that. So diagnostics sector, Arcdia International launched a product line for rapid diagnostics of acute gastroenteritis. BioHit signed distribution agreements in China and India, and they also had activities in Russia. So the gastro panel got positive results in detecting patients at increased risk for developing gastric cancer. Bone Index also received a 510(k) clearance from the FDA from their, to help in osteoporosis diagnostics. Very important opening for the US market. And Medicortex, a Turku-based company who is developing diagnostics and treatments for brain injuries, they will start clinical trial to develop diagnostic kit for brain injury. Optomed, the retinal imaging system developer, they signed distribution agreement with German Essilor, which is probably the world's biggest player in this area. And Revenio Group, a listed company in Finland, their daughter iCare Finland got FDA clearance to sell the next generate tonometer from intraocular pressure in the US market. PlanMed got the CE mark for its breast tomosynthesis system and also got the famous Red Dot Design Award for that. And Lawyer got a very big deal from Indonesia, so they are supplying 70 operating tables with all accessories included to Indonesia. Then in the financing field, the two companies that have been performing well earlier are still doing strong. So HiTest, diagnostic company who is producing reagents mainly for cardiac infarction. Their sales grew to 17.3 million euros and had an incredible 41.7% net operating profit. So very well done, HiTest. Revenio Group also was able to grow their sales by 26%, now exceeding 20 million euros, and also their profit levels were extremely high. Then also the environment changes. There happens mergers and acquisitions. Of course, the biggest acquisition was the acquisition of BioTurku in the spring by Accorda, US Accorda Therapeutics for $363 million. Then PerkinElmer, a US giant who has strong operations here in Turku, they acquired Vanadis Diagnostics AB, a Swedish company. And Lawyer, who was able to sell operating tables in Indonesia. They also acquired Physiopartner in Norway, which is the biggest supplier of these products in Norway area. And surprisingly, Nokia enters again, let's say, the digital health field. So they acquired French Withings, a consumer electronics company focusing in wearables, for 170 million euros. And also in the service sector, clinical CRO Farenta acquired Secret Files Ltd, Helsinki-based company. But then when we look at the industry in general in 2015, so we are, I must say, we must be all proud that the Finnish health technology industry is now the largest high-tech export segment in Finland, so representing 54% of all high-tech exports. And of course, the exports totaled almost 2 billion euros, 1.92 billion, and since 2006 had a steady growth, so annual growth almost 8%, but the trade balance grew even faster, about 13.2% annually. Within the health technology sector, medical equipment, which includes mainly patient monitoring sector, is the largest, representing 70% of this almost 2 billion, but also diagnostics sector has shown really important figures. So now the exports of the diagnostics sector is more than 500 million euros, and I believe that Finland is now one of the 7 countries who is exporting more diagnostics than importing. Pretty impressive growth rates, 8.6% for exports and 18.5% growth annual growth in trade balance. On top of that, the Finnish pharmaceutical exports was 852 million euros, and the added value of the pharmaceutical sector to Finland was 1.3 million euros. So this includes also salaries and so on. And the pharmaceutical industry operating in Finland, they made investments in Finland a total of 220 million. So lots of money in this sector, invested in this sector. Then in the end, let's say, I would like to think, is this a deep analysis, but at least it is my analysis of the industry in general and the industry how it seems in Finland from my point of view. So I start with the comparison between US and EU and US industries. So the pharmaceutical sector has had or pretty steady growth both in US and EU, but the US employs 2 times more people than EU. Average company size in the US has 47 persons versus a EU company has 32 employees. So last year figures were 43 and 28, so both growing at the same rate. This continues, so would be nice. The US R&D expense, however, is 5.5 times the R&D expense in the EU area. Then from public company data, US and both US and EU revenues, they have steady growth, pretty steady growth, but US revenues remain 3 times bigger than revenues of EU companies. There are about twice as many public companies in the US versus in EU, but the total market cap in EU is 5 times than that of in EU. Then venture financing. If we look at these figures, we had a peak in 2007 in the US, also in EU. It seems that after steady 2008 to 2013, we have again seeing growth, and venture financing in the US was higher than than ever in this period. I think in 2000 it was even higher. The same applies also EU. So past 2 years have seen growth in venture financings. Then if we look at the figures more closely, EU versus Finland, we seem more or less a similar kind of trends. In general, it seems that EU kind of starts to have recovered and its venture financings in this sector, whereas Finland showed extremely good figures in 2014, but that was, I think, due to the fact that many companies went public, and the venture capitalists who were one of the owners, they invested considerable amounts more in these portfolio companies. So in a way, Finland has been in pretty steady but low levels in life sciences. So Finland represents less than 2% of EU venture capital investments in life sciences, and considering the importance of the sector for export and trade balance, this is incredibly low. Then I made a comparison between between our neighbors, Denmark and Sweden. So, what is the percentage of life science venture capital investments of all venture capital money that is available? So the black dotted line represents EU average. So EU average says that about 35% of all venture capital money goes to life sciences. In Denmark, it's about 45%. Sweden is kind of EU average, but Finland is here in less than 25%. So considerable low levels of venture capital money going to our sector. Average investment per company in the EU again is last year was 2 million. Danish companies got as an average got 3 million, and Finnish companies 0.9 million. So this means that Finnish companies still they remain underfunded compared to our let's say potential partners in neighboring areas. Then what's happening in the future? What are the challenges? I would say that health IT sector will be growing, and we have seen lots of activities in this area. So this is the statistics made by Venture Scanner, and I think this includes North American incubators and accelerators. So we see that there are lots of companies in IoT, healthcare, fitness, digital media, and clinical administration, and so on. Also in electronic health records area, there are many companies in this area. Fewer companies in for example, in online health destination sites, and so even though it's a more mature market than European. But then I think this will be my last slide. So venture investing in health IT, again based on the data from Venture Scanner. If you look at first of the red, the blue line, here you can see the more investment, total investments. For example, most investment gets clinical companies who are operating in the clinical administration field, that was per millions per company. But if we see that how much money is spent totally in which sector, I think that what we could draw a conclusion that anyone that is above the average line, there is much more competition than in areas where the gap is higher. You can of course say if this is a thing, if my conclusion is right or not, but that's my opinion. So lots of competition in IoT healthcare sector, telehealth, even in electronic health records and mobile fitness applications. But where Finland is strong is genomics and personalized medicine. There is, let's say, average investments per company is high, so there could, I think that there could be some room for new players, and luckily Finland has some really good openings in this sector. So that was my overview for the year dating 12 months backwards, and thank you for your attention, and I think we got some time for questions if you have.
Thank you, Tero. Thank you very much for keeping time. We are well ahead in our schedule. Any questions, comments for Tero? People are so thrilled they're still incubating. So, there you go.
So, what is Denmark doing differently? Why are they so successful in funding?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what is Denmark doing differently? Why are they so successful in getting funding? I would say that there are two reasons. Denmark has more bigger companies, more traditions in wider traditions, especially in pharmaceutical development than Finland has. Also the local companies have some, for example, Novo and Lundbeck have their own funds that they invest. But then again, it's geography. They are closer to, for example, German or Benelux venture capitalists. That's why they are able, and also closer to Central European or venture capitalists. So geography kind of helps in this respect, because you would, for a company, you would need to have a local. Let's put it this way: if it is typical if a Central European venture capitalist company would invest in your company, you would need to have a local lead investor. And in Finland, we don't have a local lead investor. In Denmark, they do have. So the funding environment is also more positive in that respect.
Please.
How are Finnish companies doing comparing how do we succeed in getting EU funding like
So how are Finnish companies doing in succeeding, or in succeed? How do they succeed getting Horizon 2020 funding? So I don't have any statistics in this, but recently in this Horizon 2020, I have, for example, these examples that I showed show to my opinion is that we should be more active. I think Finnish companies are not active enough in getting the strategic funding. We could do a lot more in that respect.
Yeah, I would maybe comment that perhaps in terms of getting soft money, i.e. grants and other funding from these types of EU organizations, there's not such a big difference between the Finnish companies and say Danish companies. But then again, in terms of the ability to raise hard money, which is really coming from VC funds and genuine investments, there's a big gap. And say like 10, 12 years ago, Finland was by and large on par with Denmark, and now Denmark has gone way past. Norway was nothing, say 10 years ago. Now they have a booming industry. But then again, when you go and talk to the Danes and talk to the Norwegians, they think they're in a poor situation, and they compare themselves to the US folks, where the business really is booming, and Europe as a whole is lagging significantly behind. But then again, we really shouldn't throw the towel in the ring by no means. But there's really room for improvement. Any other questions, comments for Tero? Tero, you didn't mention anything about the recent government initiatives and activities that the Finnish government has taken. And like for me, it was one of the biggest news that I ever saw on Finnish TV news, when I actually saw the Prime Minister using the words pharmaceutical development. This was something that they never ever had talked about before. And when we talk to politicians, I see even the brightest one just glaze over their eyes because they just couldn't understand what we are talking about, because this is not the forest industry or the paper industry. It's and they finally fall asleep when I mention that this is the commodity is not really the tablets, but it's the IP, and then they just. So there's a lot of education to be done, but do you want to comment on what the government has been doing?
Well, the government has been launching different strategies, growth strategy in the health sector, genomic strategy, which were presented a year ago, or launched a year ago, or more than a year ago, so that's why they are not so significantly here today. But of course, you're right in that respect that the attitude within the ministries and within the government has changed to more positive ones, and that is probably because of the impact of the industry, the nation's economy.
Sure.
Statulaurila from Novartis. Maybe it's fair for politicians to continue that after these strategies they have made decision to give funding to Finnish Cancer Center and also the Genomic Center. So there is 17 million euro budget funding for this to implement this. Pardon?
And biobank.
And biobanks, yes. So it's some sort of fair thanks also improvement also what comes to concrete positive actions from the political field.
So positive developments. Any other comments, questions to Tero? Any other discussion on this matter? I know that this format is not too inducive to discussion, but then again, thanks for the comments and for the discussion.